today, of course, to join in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are organized, who are energized, and who are mobilized in Ferguson, Missouri. We're here today to join hands with them in solidarity because here in Baltimore, we are all too familiar with their pain. Am I right about it?
Yes.
Right here in Baltimore alone, we've lost African-American men at the hands of the Baltimore City Police Department. When I think of Brother Michael Brown, I think of names like Anthony Anderson. I think of names like Tyrone West. I think of names like George King. You see, and the list goes on and on and on. We all have incidences where we know of people who've been stopped and frisked and whose rights have been violated by the police. We live right here in a city where average, everyday, hardworking citizens will be indicted, they will be prosecuted, and they will be convicted to the fullest extent of the law for murder. But police officers, there is a double standard. Police officers can kill at will, and there are no consequences. The state's attorney's office won't bring indictments against police officers. It's almost as if there are certain lives that have value and certain lives that don't. And so we're here today, states and states away, to send a message of unity and solidarity. Because we know that it's Michael Brown today. But if we don't take a stand, if we don't remain vigilant, if we don't remain steadfast, if we don't remain unmovable, it will be our sons tomorrow. Not only do we think of our dear brother Brown, we think of Eric Garner. We think of that brother put in that chokehold and murdered by the police in New York. We also talked with some folk in New York who indicated to us that a pregnant woman was put in the chokehold by the NYPD in that same state. We also spoke about a woman who was taken out of her home. Her house was raided. She was in the hallway naked, and she was arrested. Her 12-year-old son was arrested, and a neighbor who tried to intervene was arrested. There's some of us who've gone to the last mile of the way with this police brutality fight. There's some of us who've been jailed protesting police brutality because we understand that it is a blood stain on the integrity of our society. We understand that the integrity of our society is on trial when police can kill and murder without consequence. We understand that when mothers have to bury their sons, their families are essentially destroyed. You know, we've got a problem with the fact when we've got state-sponsored execution of black men. We hear a lot of discussion about black-on-black crime recently, and we have an issue with that. But we've got a bigger issue with the fact that there are people that are being paid by the taxpayers who have taken a sworn and subscribed oath to protect and serve. And these people are murdering folk, and they are destroying families at will. And so, yes, we're taking a stand. We're taking a stand because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
We're taking a stand because we're human beings. We're taking a stand across racial and ethnic and economic grounds because we understand that it's the right thing to do. At some point, we've got to recognize that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And very simply, these issues boil down to issues of right and wrong. And so we're going to begin the rally officially, and we're going to hear from various speakers. We're going to start here, of course, and then we're going to make our way down to the police station. And we're going to make our way down there for some very, very obvious reasons. Because, of course, as we indicated, these are officers who continue to be on the job. The same officers who killed Anthony Anderson, they're still on the job. The officers that killed Tyrone West, they are still on the job. The officers that tasered George King 5 times are still on the job. A 19-year-old man goes into cardiac arrest. Otherwise healthy, they are still on the job. And so we're going to hear from a couple of community activists. But before we do round of applause.
Unfolding in Ferguson, and I use that word very intentionally. Terror that's going on. Those who are on the front lines of that situation are being tear gassed and harassed and intimidated by those who are in law enforcement. They are experiencing domestic terrorism right now, and though the history books may not describe it that way, it's up to us to call it what it is. It's terrorism. I'm here because as I watched it on television, and like many of you, I've been following or even on social networking sites, and it is our common experience that it seems like you can get more accurate information from Twitter and Facebook that you can get from corporate media these days. But I've been sitting with many of you watching on Twitter and seeing the latest, the live streams of people who are just trying to take advantage of their right to peaceably assemble and protest an injustice. And at some point, I said to myself, you know what, I gotta log off. Because staying online and Facebook and Twitter, that's one thing. But there comes a time when you gotta log off and do something.
That's right.
Still Scott Heron had said that the revolution will not be televised. I add to that, the revolution will not be tweeted about either.
Come on now.
Somebody gotta log off and do something. And so I'm thankful for those who have logged off and gathered together today. And my prayer is that we stay connected beyond this moment. I'm so glad to see so many people here who I was with just recently protesting the invasion and the massacre going on in the Gaza Strip right now, the occupation of Palestinians. I'm thankful for how we are connecting the dots. And even on last night, I got a message from a woman, many of you have seen it as well. They were sending information to our sisters and brothers in Ferguson on how to withstand the tear gas that the cops were shooting at them in Ferguson. It was great to see that level and degree of cooperation and solidarity. But then somebody held up a picture of a tear gas canister. And it said these same tear gas canisters that are used in Palestine are being used right now, right here in the United States of America. And they had the address of the tear gas canister on the picture. They traced it back to Jamestown, Pennsylvania. They traced it back to a company just about 300 miles from here. A company 300 miles from here manufactured a tear gas canister that's being used on Palestinian women, children, and men there in Palestine, Israel, and now is being used in Ferguson, Missouri. Do you see how the dots are connecting, sisters and brothers? So we don't have the luxury anymore to stay in our separate corners and silos, waiting for our choice and our preferred issues to come up. We got to see this thing for what it is. We got to call out racism for what it is.
Yes, sir.
We got to call out classism for what it is.
Yes, sir.
And if it makes us uncomfortable, we got to get comfortable sitting in the tension of that. We got to sit in the tension of the intersection between class and race and to sophisticate our analysis of what's going on around us. I'll say this and I'll be done. Like many of you, we've been to many of these things. We come ready to protest. We come ready to pump our fists. We come ready to call for justice. We come ready to understand and build bridges. But we know as well that something got to happen after today.
Yeah.
And we keep the family of Mike Brown in prayer. And let's keep his name and his family central to all of this. That before he is a cause, he's somebody's child.
Yes, sir.
Let's keep that family lifted up.
Yes, sir.
And the family of Eric Garner, the family of Jonathan Farrell, the family of Rakia Boyd, the family of Jonathan Crawford, who was killed in Walmart after he picked up a toy gun near Dayton, Ohio. We got to keep all the families in prayer. That we might hold them up or keep them in your positive thoughts. We might hold them up and keep the human issue as the first issue. More than our philosophy, more than our politics. We got to come together and stand together as a people to say that, as Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. One final thing, I want to encourage black, brown, and poor communities to stretch our imagination for where we go from here. We've had enough of the call for increased sensitivity training.
Come on now.
We've had enough of the call for persons to work better with the police department. Can I ask you a question?
Come on.
How do you work better with a police department
Yes, sir.
that does not seem to have the wherewithal to hold itself accountable when it steps outside the lines of the law? How do you hold a police, how do you partner with the police when they don't have the integrity to abide by the same laws they try to put on you and me? I want to say to black, brown, and poor folk, let's consider some other ideas. Maybe it's time for us to police the police.
All right.
Maybe pull out our camcorders, to protect ourselves with the technology that all of us have in our pockets right now. What if, can I just pose an idea, what if we recorded every encounter with the police, uploaded to the internet, we might share with one another every encounter, large or small, that we might record the names, record the badge numbers, record the tag numbers of every cop car that comes in our community.
Yes.
That we might protect ourselves. And for those who might be a little bit hesitant about the idea, perhaps it might help the police as well. Maybe it'll protect everybody. They say that maybe Baltimore City Police might consider one day putting front-facing cameras on their uniforms. But can I tell you, we ain't got time to wait for that. Let the politicians do what politicians do. The community got to do what we got to do. So might we band together, not just today, but in the days forward. Let's come up with new ideas, new ways to come together. No matter where you are in the spectrum of politics or philosophy, this is something that affects us all. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you, Pastor.
Thanks a lot for letting me speak today. I gotta say, I'm humbled that you all let me speak. I was up late last night, up till 4 a.m. on Twitter. I'm sure a lot of you were, looking at these photos. And I thought to myself, where's this? Afghanistan? Gaza? Iraq? No. Ferguson. Small town America. I did some research. I looked into it because I am running for Congress. People that are given small town America these weapons is Congress. They're militarizing our police. They're giving them all this terrorist fighting technology. What is that about? Who are the police using it on? It's wrong. Every community agrees. Militarizing the police has got to end. We need to police the police. We need to continue that call. Put cameras on them, not put them in tanks. That's ridiculous. The thing that got to me more than anything else, and the reason I wanted to speak here today, because we all saw, before Congress took its vacation, it said, you know what we got to do? We got to come together and we got to give extra military funding to Israel. They went into the 11th hour to make sure Israel got that funding. We see journalists, we see citizens in a small town, and we see black Americans under attack right here. Where's Congress? Where is Congress? Where are our federal leaders? They have time to save Israeli lives. They don't have time to save black lives. This is unacceptable. And that's why I'm so humbled you let me come up here and speak today. You have a choice on election day. Elect new leaders like me and like others all around the country. I don't care if they have a D or an R next to their name. If they're in power right now and they're in Congress, remember, they are doing nothing. They're doing nothing to stop this. I'm Ian Schlakman. Check me out online, ian42.com. I really want to appreciate you all being here today. Israeli lives are as important as black lives. All lives are equally important.
All lives. But they ain't gonna just stop at the flag.
They're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. People of color are just as important here in America as the people in Israel. And we need to stand up and we need to say, here and in Gaza and everywhere else in the world, stop the militarization, end the violence.
Truth and stop the lies. Michael Brown didn't have to die. Tell the truth and stop the lies. Michael Brown didn't have to die. Tell the truth and stop the lies. Michael Brown didn't have to die. Tell the truth and stop the lies. Michael Brown didn't have to die. We're gonna revamp that. City. We're here today because we have buried our own sons, so we relate to the brothers and sisters in Ferguson tonight. We had to bury Anthony Anderson. We held his mother and cradled her in our arms when she buried her son at the hands of the Baltimore City Police. We remember it well. The Baltimore City Police Department came up behind Edith Fletcher's son. They indicated that he had drugs in his system. They said he had drugs in his system. And what they did was, as if drug was some sort of justification for violating his human rights, they had the audacity to pick him up from behind and launch him up into the air like a basketball, slammed him on his head and killed him instantly. That murder was actually described and designated as a homicide. And would you believe that the incumbent state's attorney would not indict these officers? We know that every single time we look around, what happens in our city is, and not just this city, but major cities across this country, that officers get off for killing African American men. It's almost as if the life of an African American man is somehow less of value than someone else's. Can I get a witness up in here today? But we also remember Tyrone West. Brother Tyrone West was pulled out his car in Northeast Baltimore. He was beaten severely, he was kicked, he was stomped, he was tasered. They did everything they could do to him possibly within the parameters of what they could think. And they killed this brother on the spot. You see, unfortunately, we've become accustomed to some degree to burying our sons. But how many of you know today that enough is enough? Because we can't take it anymore. Enough is enough because, see, my son is here 5 years old. And I've got to tell you the truth that if you're like me, that if somebody put their hands on that child, Lord have mercy, help me, Jesus. So brothers and sisters, we're here today remembering Brother Tyrone West. But what about George King? George King was a 19-year-old child, 19 years old. This brother was otherwise in healthy condition. He was tased 5 times by the Baltimore City Police Department. Not once, not twice, not 3 or 4, but 5 times. The reason why that's important is because Taser International, the company that manufactures the tasers, said that any taser past 1 tase has the potential to be deadly. So they killed this child not once, not twice, 3 times, 4 times. They killed this child 5 times. And so we are here today understanding the pain. We are here today understanding the anguish of the people in Missouri. And we lock arms today. Say we love you, Missouri.
We love you, Missouri.
Say we love you, Missouri.
We love you, Missouri.
We stand united, Missouri.
We stand united, Missouri.
We're brothers and sisters, Missouri.
We're brothers and sisters.